Record. Beautiful. Okay. Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We will get started in a short minute.
Awesome. I have a marketplace project to do.
Oh,
Whoever that is, that's
sounds
cute.
adorable.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, it is recording, so I do think we can probably get started. And I will be letting people in as they pop into the waiting room. But first of all, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your Friday afternoon to come to this meeting. I know it's pretty crazy with all these IASIS events going on and just the nature of it being a Friday afternoon. But we're super excited that you could make it, and we're we have some important information regarding this year's new service, this semester's new service club application process that we're going to be running through. This meeting is recorded, as you guys know, and it will be posted onto the bulletin. So in case you do miss out on any information or want to go back and check, you can do so there.
Okay, so the applications will open today and they'll close March 18th. The deadline will be 11:59 p.m. and it cannot be late. We will not be making no exceptions. You will fill out a document with questions and then email it to HS service email and to schedule a one-on-one meeting with an ESC officer to that's if you want to, sorry. You will email your application to HS service, but if you want a one-on-one meeting with an ESC officer to ask questions or just to be more in touch with what or how the NSC process works, you can always schedule a meeting at the same email.
Yeah, just a couple of things to add onto the slide. Thank you, Minkwei. So at the end of today's session, I will be sending the link to the NSC application to the chat, and you will be able to go over it. And when you're on the call, you can ask questions that you have about it. And yeah, like Minkwei said, we're open to helping you throughout the process. ESC is here to go over your application, not necessarily go over it, but if you have any questions and you need a second set of eyes before you press submit, contact HS service or any one of us individually, and we would be more than happy to help.
So I think a lot of you probably know what's on this slide as you're applying, but just to just clarify in a sense, an NSC or a new service club is a service club that's in its test stage or is just starting. And as a council, we want to ensure that an NSC's mission is feasible and that membership is sustainable and that leadership is strong. And throughout the year, we'll be checking in with the ESC, the NSC on a bi-monthly basis to ensure that this is thriving and assist with any roadblocks. This does say that we check in on a bi-monthly basis, but if you guys at any point need any advice or any help, you guys can always reach out to us since we have experience with a lot of NSCs. And essentially a new service club is just a club that you're trying to start to bring on a new initiative in the school.
Okay, so what's the process between moving from an NSC to an official service club in ServCub? So you'll need to have greens in your club review for 2 years, and it needs to be a strong, solid green, and your club really needs to be doing well. Just because you have gotten a green 2 years does not guarantee your transition from NSC to service club. And you have to maintain the status in the 2 years you become an NSC. So why would you want to be an NSC and why would you want to apply? Well, there have a couple advantages, which was, recognition on the website or portal. You can be in Global Village as you might have seen, or our service fair in the beginning of the year. You can have access to our monthly service council meetings and ability to fundraise and have contact with ESC and admin. We can help you advertise for fundraisers, events, and we have funds for you, and you can use our funds to further your initiative. So, NSC or service project, what is the difference? And NSC will be a club, and it will be it will run for hopefully as long as the school runs. So, but a project will be a short-term, meaningful operation where it doesn't need any members necessarily. It could just have a couple officers running it, and it'll just be short-term, like a week event or just a fundraiser, one-time thing. It has to have a time frame, while a service club runs whenever or however it can, and as long as it does. And it is an option to apply as a service project if you aren't accepted as an NSC, or we might tell you to apply as a service project as your service initiative might fit better with the service project structure. But just know service projects do not need members, so they will not be able to be in service fairs and such, but they will still receive funding if they need to, and they still can go through ESC advertising avenues, and it'll just be a short-term thing.
I actually do. Oh, Ashley, sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, just before we move on, yeah, this is just something to consider now. I think really just take the time to consider whether your initiative that you have in mind, I'm sure most of you guys do have something in mind as you're attending this meeting, whether this is more a one-time thing, or you want this to be a sustainable project. You want to continue this throughout your time, like Minghui said, at SAS. So we don't want you to go through the hassle of applying for an NSC when really your thing goes directly with, it aligns with the service project definition.
And additionally, I just want to emphasize that a service project is another avenue for you to conduct your service. It is not another option in regards to a rejected NSC proposal. The ESC is here to advise you on which proposal fits or which avenue it fits your service idea and initiative fits best in, but we're not giving you a comment saying, okay, you're not accepted as an NSC. Here is a service project that you can apply to be a part of our community. It's a matter of in regards to whether it really fits in one area or the other. And so if you have any questions about this, please do contact us.
Yeah, and I think just adding on a little bit more, it's not like an NSC or a service club's better than a service project in any way. It's just that they're just two different things. Like if you look at For Ukraine, right? It's like a new service project that's for helping Ukraine in the situation it is right now. And that wouldn't really make sense as a club, as the ongoing crisis in Ukraine right now is probably not going to be a sustainable or a long-term issue. And therefore a service project made sense for it to quickly and effectively help them. So just think about which one your mission best fits in, and it's not like one's superior to the other.
Yes, very well said. Okay. More information on that is on our website if you do want to explore that idea. So just a couple of things of what we look for in your application. So these questions, once I do send the official application to the chat, these will be the ones that are the main questions on your application. So first, mission. if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, so your club's mission should be viable, feasible, and scalable. So keep it short. I do believe we have a word limit on the mission. We want to know exactly what your club aims to do and what it aims to tackle, the issue that you are addressing, and how you will be doing it, or your main form of service. For instance, Read Bhutan, the club that I am directly involved with, we're helping transform rural Bhutanese communities through literacy. And we do this by Zoom sessions. And of course, we have fundraising events. We have other ways to sustain our clubs, but our main avenue is Zoom sessions. And this is how we do conduct our service. We make it continuous, and we do that plus other things. So also another thing that adds on to this is kind of keeping it short to who you're helping. You don't want to say you want to single-handedly solve poverty and that's the goal of your club. We want to know where you're working, who you're working with, and then why you're working with, but that'll get into other questions, which we'll go on to later. So just as concise as you can be and as straight to the point.
Yeah, so the next thing we'll be looking at with your application is originality. And this is a pretty big one, as their SAS already has a lot of service clubs that approach many different issues. So essentially, we'll be looking at the club's mission, and the approach must be unique amongst the other SAS clubs and service community. And the club should tackle a completely new issue or address another more common issue in a different matter, and basically just kind of have at least one solid aspect of like unique aspect, because we don't want to have like overlapping clubs. And also there is a cap as to how many service clubs SAS can have. So due to that, we want to get as many unique clubs to serve as many issues as we can.
And you can see all of these clubs on our website. When I'm sending the links later, I will send that one as well. All of the clubs are listed on their websites along with their missions, where you can get an example of what a mission statement does look like. You can see that there as well. But I highly suggest going over that list before you think of applying, and before you put forward your application. It'll be super helpful. And something that we do is sometimes if we get a club application that we feel is similar to one of the current clubs, is we call for a merger, or two applicants will sometimes call for a merger there. And sometimes if we get a club application that looks like an existing club in our community, where we say go and join the club. So originality is key. Next, we have officers. So your club should have a team of officers. It is best not to apply alone. That is possible, but we want to, as you know, clubs at SAS do have structured and fixed officer structures. So your club should have a team that exhibits teamwork and shared leadership. I'll get into this later, but when I talk about the meeting/interview portion of the application period, but each officer should be equally passionate, equally as informed about the cause that you're serving and what you're applying to do. You guys should all be there because you love the cause and because you're truly passionate about the service that you wish to be conducting, not because your friend dragged you along because they're like, we need another co-president, we need another officer. Likewise, for sustainability, you should have one officer who will be at SAS 2 years from the application date in order to ensure complete and sustainable development of the club, so that when the rest of the officers graduate or move on, become upperclassmen, there are other people to hold it. Another thing is, okay, and we will be answering, should we answer questions now or should we hold them to the end of the meeting? I think
later.
Yeah. Okay, hold your questions to the end of the meeting. We have a Q&A session and we are happy to answer them then. That's great, we have questions. Okay, for sponsors, the club, we do request that you try to have and sponsor by the time of your application. On the application, you will see that we're like, although it is strongly suggested, it's not required. ESC can help you, but unfortunately, it's kind of hard for us to, in the sense that sponsors are more willing to sponsor your club if you go to them and if the individual officers go to them and ask, because you are the ones who want to take it on. Sometimes you may have like a personal relationship with a teacher that makes it easier. Every single teacher at SAS is already sponsoring something, whether that be MUN, sports, service clubs, general clubs. So this would be an additional thing that they're taking on. So in terms of getting a sponsor, it's easier to talk to and have someone you know, or a teacher that you already have an existing relationship, sponsor your club. And teachers are more willing to do this than you may think. Just go up to them, ask them. Kind of on our SAS Service Club website, we show the sponsor requirements, and you can kind of skim over that list before you do request for that.
And in regards to approaches to service, so what this essentially is if you've explored our website, we will be sending this later, but approaches to service is how the structure in itself guides our service community in the activities that service clubs do, the approaches to actually making and putting forward meaningful and tangible change and support in the communities that the service club supports themselves. And so in regards to this, there are 4 pillars that drive all of what service clubs do. And that is direct service, indirect service, advocacy, and research. And in club reviews, which clubs are actually required to do, we will ask as an ESC these particular questions. So this is kind of more enforced in our community in regards to the different variations of how service clubs can actually make tangible change. So direct service, just for a quick explanation, is essentially face-to-face contact, actually helping the community in need as a person. If it's an environmental club, working with the environment. If it's English related, teaching English to students on Zoom, for example. Indirect service is what you see around school here at SAS. That would be fundraisers, that would be booths in the foyer, as well as different activities such as a Minecraft competition or a video game competition. And then advocacy is very much on promotion and sharing the events that will occur for indirect service, as well as the mission counts and writing. Did I cut out?
Just a bit.
All right. Where did I cut out?
Just can you restart advocacy?
All right.
Okay.
My bad. Sorry. Advocacy is very much on sharing social media posts. It's sharing the mission at hand or an event, and it's getting general awareness in our community and beyond of the service club that you apply with. And so this can be part of your plan as well. Research is very much on the scale of what you conduct internally as a club, as well as perhaps even externally. This is getting more information on the community you serve. Members can research about the particular issues that your communities face, as well as, for example, conducting polls, doing presentations in your club. And so these are just particular ideas off the top of my head. But what we look for in your application is a combination of all sorts of these pillars. Now, of course, direct service is very particular, and we're not necessarily having a more emphasis on direct service because firstly of the pandemic, as well as the particular mission that you have as a club. But indirect service, advocacy, and research are huge emphasis points as we look in your application.
If I can just add something there, if you see on the slideshow, it says ideally you should engage in at least 2 of these pillars. And I think with any service club, you're going to address all of these pillars at some point in time, due to the fact that you're serving a cause. And in order to serve that cause, there are many different aspects. But in fact, some of the best service clubs I've seen focus on either like 2 or 3 of these. And by focusing on not all of them, but a select few, you can tailor your service and I guess fit the needs of your organization or the people you're serving better. So I think all of you guys are going to address all of these anyway, but yeah, I guess you can focus on a couple.
Great. And then quickly activities. So your club should have a few events brainstormed. Again, building off onto the last slide. For example, direct service opportunities, indirect service activities, events that you and your officer team have thought of. Renee is going to get into this in the next slide with the 100-day plan, but we want to see concrete activities, concrete plans for when and if you are accepted as an NSC, because you will be granted the right to being a club, and then you'll start to get members and you have to do something with the members. You have to have activities, you have to have ways for them to dive into service off the bat. And this is really important.
Speaking of which, the 100-day plan is a key aspect of the application process. So what this essentially is a 100-day plan is, like the title, basically kind of a overview of the first 100 days if you are accepted as a club. So this is roughly 3.5 months, 3 months-ish. And so what are you doing each week? What are you doing as an officer team? What events do you have planned? How can you get your club off the ground? And so we think and we emphasize that this is a huge part of your application. This includes, for example, meeting with ESC, having an event tailored to your particular cause, such as a fundraiser, as well as member recruitment. And that could be a huge part of your 100-day plan as well. And so this can be in the form of a document, a Google document with a list. Some clubs have applied week by week plans. Some have not done individual days, but we do not want to emphasize that. This is more of a realistic whole picture, not on the small things you would do each day as a particular individual as a part of your application, but very much so on the monthly or weekly scale. And so in the spring, especially now, there are several aspects that we also hope that you consider, and this is the COVID-19 restrictions. And so food in the high school foyer that's been sold by previous service clubs have to all be packaged. So that's just for you to be aware of. And if you have any questions about the current COVID-19 restrictions in our community, feel free to reach out to us. And we'll be happy to provide you with information so that you can assume the same is carried on to the next semester as well.
Just sorry, a little thing to add about the COVID-19 restrictions. We're currently creating a document with all the restrictions and how like just all the restrictions that we face right now in terms of service and like giving out food and stuff. So we'll be sending out that document soon. So look out for that. Also with the 100-day plan, I think a good piece of advice is just think about what the clubs you're in right now do, right? So think about what they do in your weekly meetings, think about what their goals are and how they go about doing that. And that can kind of inspire you to create your 100-day plan. And like Renee said, we aren't really looking for a day-to-day thing because your plan would probably change based on what happens. But rather a big picture thing with details, key details to allow us to see exactly what you want to do. So yeah.
Yeah, Sarvesh said this perfectly, but I do want to emphasize as well that when looking at other clubs for inspiration does not mean copying their ideas in fundraising and activities. And so we actually do look at that and see how similar it is to other clubs and their initiatives. So we're not very stringent on that, but please do be creative. We love to see new initiatives and activities in our community. Oh, and almost to the end, everyone. So in regards to external organization requirements and working and reaching out to partnering with NGOs or other organizations here in Singapore or around the world, it is emphasized, and this is a key point in the application as well, and if not one of the most important aspects of the application, as we look into the organization you're partnered with. So for context, SAS is a nonprofit organization. And for our school to uphold the nonprofit status we have to either work with other nonprofit organizations or not donate directly to for-profit organizations or companies or anything of that sort. So this requires a proof of nonprofit status if you are working with a nonprofit. This is the 5013C. If you all want to mark that down, we will also be sending this out, but it is 5013C is the US status code number for a nonprofit. Please find this perhaps even on their website, or if you're reaching out to the NGO themselves, do contact them and ask them for that information. A proof of contact is also important. So when reaching out to them, this is important to introduce yourselves, saying that you're applying for a club at SAS, and we love to collaborate. And we ask you to send screenshots of your emails, your correspondence, anything of that sort, and put it in your application document so we know that there's been a proof of contact established between you and the organization that you hope to work with. The validity of the organization will be checked by the Executive Service Council when we go through your application. And if it is a for-profit organization, unfortunately, this may be an issue in regards to the acceptance of your application. And if it is a social enterprise, there are ways to work around that. And if the time comes to, if possible, accept your club, then we will talk you through in terms of donation policies and other sort of logistical aspects of fundraising.
Okay, so now into what the application process looks like. So this process was created, I would say 4 years ago, and it's been pretty consistent since. So the stage number one is a blind application. You guys will be submitting the written application that I will be sending at the end of this call. And ESC members look at this application without officer names. So we also assign it so that you don't, like, if you have a friend applying, you'll probably know generally what their service club is about. So to prevent that, we make sure that it's different in that people, ESC officers who are assigned to an application don't have existing relationships with the officers, to prevent any bias there, even though it is blind, just in case you have that background knowledge. So then you will have a primary reviewer and a secondary reviewer. This is more of an internal ESC thing, but you will have two main people who will go over your application, read it, make comments, add questions. These are for the ESC, but then we will present these questions in the second stage of the application process, which is then an interview. So after we read over your application, we will be reaching out to your officers, asking to schedule an interview. This may be virtual if that works better for your club, but it also may be in person for like a lunch meeting or something like that. These are usually pretty chill, pretty conversation based. We just want to get to know more about your club, why you're serving. Specifically, we want to see passion showing through the officer team. We want to know that all of the officers are equally as knowledgeable and, again, passionate about the cause, and that your club is one that would be able to be sustainable within the SAS community. Yeah, again, it's not something to worry about, and every club does get an interview. Finally, if you're not accepted, please apply again next semester. We will be reaching out to all of the clubs that, obviously the ones that we do accept, but also the ones that we don't accept. And us being the ESC is we're here for you when we aren't able to accept your application, and we want to help you refine it so that when the next application cycle comes around, you have a better chance and you stand in a better place. We're always open to meeting with you and discussing your plans. So I think that's pretty much, oh yes, go
Could I
ahead.
just add one thing here? Yeah, so even before I was a part of this ESC last year, I applied for an NSC and didn't get accepted. And what I did was I reached out to one of the officers of the ESC, and they gave really good feedback. And what that allowed us to do was actually refine our club and change our mission in a way that would serve, would be more original and also serve the community that we were trying to serve in a more efficient and like a better way, I guess. So please just use the ESC as a way to improve your application and your club. And then please reapply next year.
Okay, yes. Questions, please feel free to either type them in the chat or unmute yourselves. Yes, here. How do I don't know. Okay. Yes, would you like to unmute yourself or you can type? Okay, awesome. Yes.
What exactly can like a leadership structure like have? Like, is there like a president, co-president, officer sort of format, or it's like what kind of thing could there be?
Renee has an obsession with the Kathy Berger K model, so I'll let her talk about that.
All right, thank you for the question. So Kathy Berger K is a educator that is focused on service learning. And so as an ESC, we look up to her in terms of how service clubs in other schools run. And so what she shared is that it's recommended that all officers have an equal position in terms of the name and title in serving of their position team that they create. And so, for example, I'm just going to use Reed Baton, so Ashley and my club. So there's a few years ago, there's a level where it was everyone were co-presidents. And so co-presidents ensured that everyone was working together in a group collaboration format. For particular clubs elsewhere, this can be seen in regards to there's presidents or co-presidents as well as officers. So officers work with the presidents and they help run meetings, but presidents do more of the work liaising with the NGO that they work with. Or for example, there are different models and structures where an officer is in charge of a particular job, such as the outreach committee, the outreach committee, the events committee, anything like that. But we found over the years, generally, that wasn't really a model or structure that necessarily worked for a lot of clubs. And so we generally recommend that everyone is either a co-officer, a co-president, or has a president and officer structure. Is there any?
So everyone has to have an equal role, or is it like just make sure there's a solid structure in place?
It's more of a solid structure, but we recommend an equal role.
All right.
So
yeah, like it's recommended by us. That's just personal ESC preference. Other clubs may think that their preferred ways, like Renee said, the different roles is a better way for them as a club. So it's really up to you, whatever works best to serve your mission.
Will not having the recommended structure affect our chances of being approved?
No.
All right.
Okay, I have a question. Does the original group of officers need to contain someone who will still be at the school in 2 years, or could these individuals be elected? So if you plan, so typically what happens is a NSC, when they're first elected, they do not need to hold elections that first semester that they are elected for. We strongly suggest that when you do apply, you have this person who will be at SAS 2 years from the date. But again, if this means dragging someone along for the sake of dragging someone along and them not being passionate about the issue, not being knowledgeable about the issue, then please don't do that. And you can consider holding elections the spring that you are elected. Harry, would you like?
Hi, I have a question. So if I want to talk to one of the officer about like whether this idea of starting a club is eligible, should I send an email, or how should I like organize a meeting with one of the officers?
Send an email to hsservice@sas.edu.sg and we'll be happy to help.
All right, cool, thanks.
Okay, I have lots of questions coming in the chat. Do you have any specific advice for a current service project looking to transition into a service club? We found out that our mission is more long-term than we expected when starting out. I can take it, or does anyone else want to answer? Yeah, I mean, I think a service project, again, is a good opportunity to get your service started. But if you do feel like an NSC is more fitting for your club, by all means, you should go ahead and apply for an NSC, whichever structure works best for your club. I think in terms of advice, kind of showing how you've conducted service, and this is for anyone who has been, whether you've been like functioning as a club or already doing service prior to the application date, kind of just showing what you've done, showing that you're truly passionate about this cause, even though you're not officially recognized yet as a service club, that you've been going out of your way to serve, taking time out of your busy schedules, and doing this consistent service. I think that is something that really stands out in applications.
And yeah, so on the application, once we send it out to you guys, you'll see that there's actually a whole question dedicated, or it's an optional question, but it's a question dedicated to showing what you've done with this cause in the past. And so what you could do is add stuff about what you did in your service project. And that could basically show us how you're like using that in your application and your service club.
Mm-hmm. I have a question about how many people you consider to be a strong leadership structure. So officer number is up to preference. We have clubs who have like 6 officers, other clubs who have 3. It really depends on the club. The only thing that we say is when applying, please try to be with another person. Please try to have at least one other officer. We've accepted clubs with only 2 officers. So that isn't necessarily an issue, and you can look into holding early elections if you wish for other passionate people to be involved in your initiative. So it won't like put you at a disadvantage if you say only have 2 people.
And also, I recommend for like leadership structures and other stuff to look in our bylaws. We have a section on leadership officer structures and stuff. And a very recommended structure is the Kathy Burger Cake officer structure. Renee, would you like to talk about that?
Oh,
I already.
okay, I think you
but-
logged off. I
Yeah.
think your Wi-Fi broke, but she did. Okay, and then I have a question. Is it recommended to have a group of officers from a variety of grades, or will a group of all 9th graders hold an equal chance with everyone else? You will hold an equal chance. I think having underclassmen is great for sustainability. I wouldn't say there's necessarily any disadvantage to that. Sometimes it is nice to have a couple of older officers, because when it comes to things like conducting officer elections, usually it's the senior officers who do that. But again, it's not required. If you already have a strong group of underclassmen and you think that would work for your club, there's no disadvantage to that. Any
Are
other
there any other-
questions? Wait for like one more
If-
minute.
Yeah, if not, we are always checking that email, HS service. And so if you have any questions, please do send an email. If you see us in the hallways, please stop us. We are friendly people and we'd love to answer any questions you have.
Okay, yeah, I think we forgot the most important part, which is sending the application. So I will send the application to the chat. So you guys, thank you for coming to this call. Basically, what happens is when you come, you get the application earlier than everyone else. This will be linked in the bulletin going forward for the next 2 weeks. But these are the questions that we will be presenting. We went over some of them in this meeting. If you have any automatic questions, feel free to either stay back on this call, or if it's a quick question, just put it in the chat, unmute yourself. But like Renee said, we're always here. The HS service email is always open. And I will put that email in the chat too. I think most people have it, but. And
What I sent in the chat just now is sassvc.com, which is our website where you can explore and find all the resources we mentioned in the presentation today.
exactly. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.